welcome to Let's Play Gran Turismo 3, episode 92, after I've managed to clear my throat from some dust. Anyways, we have managed to get through our first endurance event, and very much unceremoniously, I dominated the first endurance event, because rubber banding in endurance events is pretty weak, in my honest opinion. And overall, as a result of that, I basically won the first endurance event, which is the Super Speedway 150 miles, by 8 laps in my Rufar GT over a Lotus Motorsport Elise. My margin of victory was 8 laps. Anyways, let's now move onwards to event number 2, and officially, it is now time for us to get through endurance event number 2, which is the Roadster endurance. And I have a choice of 3 cars here I can use. And well, I've decided I want to be traditionally classic for this next event, so I think I'm going to use... You know what, fuck it, let's use the original MX-5, just because I want to set my mark. And well, even though I might be off the pace to start with, the truth is, I know very well that this event does not require any tuning. Fuck it, why not? Let's just do that. Probably didn't need to, but I just did it anyway. And I think all I really need is just an oil change, and hopefully that will be it. So, let's head down to endurance event number 2, which is the Roadster endurance, which is basically 40 laps around Oakland Hill, 100,000 if we can win this race, and also no tuning is needed, and I think I've got everything I need to prove, of course, that I can win this event. Now, there might be a horsepower deficit in comparison to these AI, but the truth is, I don't really think power matters too much when you have the racing super slicks, because that is exactly what wins me these races. Alright, let's get to it. So here we go. It is time for 40 laps of Apricot Hill Raceway, and we're already... we are go for the start. And as I would have expected, one of the newer models, or at least one of the Gen 2 Miatas, is already leading this event. And yes, I did say Miatas because that is exactly what this is. And even though he may be taking the lead early, the truth is, I know for sure he will undeniably have to stop him for tyres, and dependent on what the overall margin is before the first round of pit stops, I am pretty sure that eventually I will manage to take the lead. And yes, I did decide to use this car just because I want to mark this out as being my territory. Now, some people will agree with this idea, other people might disagree, but I'm hopeful in saying that by the time this race is done, I will hopefully make it over to victory. And if this strategy doesn't work out, then I'm going to use one of my 1.8 MX-5s. But I'm hopeful in saying this strategy will work out, even though I might be at a power deficit in comparison, but I'm pretty sure those tyres will eventually wear off. It might be a challenge to mount myself as being a contender for the lead, but at the moment, of course, I would imagine it's only because the leading MX-5 1.8, I would assume, is on a grippier set of rubber than I am, and it looks as though I am now starting to close in just a little bit at the moment. And even though I might be on a pace deficit, the truth is, I still think it's possible for me to potentially mount a challenge on the leader by the time I have officially got him down to where the tyres can go no further. And it appears as though through Sector 1 I am proving, of course, to be faster than the leading 1.8, and crap, I just went wide. And even though he might be extending to start with, the truth is, I'm hopeful in saying this will not be too unceremonious, considering I am already extending myself away from the rest of the field. And even though it does put me at a deficit in knowing that tuning is not permitted for this event, I'm still pretty certain that through one aspect or another it will be possible for me to maybe get a shot at heading over to victory. So even though it looks as though he's extending for the early stages of this race, as of which we are only 2 laps into this race to be consistently precise in how long this has already been taking place. I think there is a possibility for me to close up because I'm on. Because even though my front tyres are starting to warm up officially, I can definitely say the tyres on the leader don't look like they're going to be holding up for much longer, and he is already in the pits. So that has effectively handed the lead over to me by default, and I would imagine it will be the first of probably many pit stops, which has ultimately led, of course, to his downfall, and already, after only 3 laps into this event, I have already taken the lead. So, apparent as it might be, my strategy has worked perfectly. And already, I am now officially 9 seconds clear of the second placed car, which by the way is another first gen MX-5. And I believe they were notably making the first gen model of the MX-5 for about 8 years, and then I think it was, what was it, 97? When they moved on to the Gen 2 models? I think that's when it was. But ultimately, overall, as I would have anticipated, the endurance events have once again come down to tyres, and I would imagine whoever the leader was at the time, which I'm assuming was the black 1.8 that led to this race in the early stages, I would imagine it is going to be quite a struggle for him to stay up in contention. So technically, under many circumstances, he has officially pretty much fallen out of contention by default of his tyres not being able to go for a prolonged distance. And even though I was at a deficit in the early stages, I can still say that I did manage to persevere with the race lead once he pitted. And even though his car may be quick on the short runs, in the long runs, I would say that car is not looking like it will officially hold itself together by the time it comes down to the long run, because I am certain he will have to pit again on lap 6. And I'm not saying I think he will pit on lap 6, I know for sure that is when he will pit again. And so, overall, I think that means he will have to make a total of... let's see... yeah, 13 pit stops during this race. Even before the final lap, he will still have to make another stop. So he will clearly be at the back of the pack by the time this race is said and done, by default of how many pit stops he had to make on those very grippy but also pretty much lifeless set of boots that he is clearly wearing down at the present time. Meanwhile, I'm just left out here to pretty much dominate the rest of this race. So 12.3 seconds is now the interval. I would imagine that is simply because those tyres are getting very easily worn down, and even though he is closing in on me temporarily, I am pretty sure that those tyres will have easily worn off by the time this race is done, because even though tyre degradation is quite a factor, is proving to be a factor in this race, I am certain that even though the black 1.8 tyre is quick, I am pretty certain that he will have to pit in on this lap before he can officially mount a challenge on me, which basically means that whatever happens up to this point, I am basically home free. Considering this was of course a choice I decided to put on myself, and I think, oddly enough, this has proven, of course, to be the right call, he thinks. And yep, he is in the pits once again. And so that is going to leave everyone else out to probably overtake him once again. And then once he comes out of the pits, he will probably be near the back of the pack. Even though the intervals after only 6 laps are already starting to separate themselves. So I'm pretty sure that up to this point in the event, I don't think anyone is going to mount a serious challenge. From what I can understand, considering I'm already a long way up the road compared to everyone else, and all I really did was an oil change. And now, as a result of me basically going for clearly the most durable tyres in this game, I am already a long way up the road. by default of me having the Unity with tyre longevity, I have officially taken the lead by pretty much a pit stop's length. And I almost set a new PB, as I now come up to the end of lap 7 and begin lap 8. So I would imagine this race will very much be like Super Speedway. It will probably take me somewhere just over an hour to complete this, and it appears as though pit stops are probably going to be the deciding point of this race, and I would imagine it will not be long, or not be too long, before I officially start to overlap the rest of the field. So just trying to see if I can potentially go for a PB here. Ultimately, we are now at 20% of the full distance here at Implicant Hill, and I've gone precisely 6 tenths faster on that lap. And officially, I think that's pretty much summed it up, and I would imagine this race will probably take around about an hour and 6 minutes, which is equivalent to a total of precisely 66 minutes overall, is how long I think this race is going to take. 66, potentially 67 minutes overall. Although, it really doesn't matter too much because, well, I've basically dominated this race since the black 1.8 made his first pit stop. Up to this point, I have just been the dominant driving force, because I am now more than half a minute black 1.8i in my sparkle green MX-5 Miata. And I must have set something miraculous on that previous, on lap 8, because there had to be a certain corner where I found those 6 tenths. And oddly enough, in comparison to all the other laps I've set, that one I would say overall is probably my best one. And he pits in again for tyres, even though it doesn't look like it affected his overall race pace too much, and also the 1.8 RS is now in the pits. And it does look as though it will be interesting to see what exactly the running order looks like, considering that's already his 3rd pit stop to date, and oddly enough, his overall pace, in spite of knowing that he's already made 3 pit stops up to this point, has clearly not dropped off, even though I would have thought for sure it would have done by now. Again, in terms of him catching me, I would say those opportunities are probably long gone, because I am pretty much well over a pit stop clear of everyone else, which I think here at Apricot Hill takes around about 17-18 seconds. But I'm pretty sure that up to this point, I'm basically left out in front to dominate the race. And I'm not going into the high 142s. So I guess that explains how much quicker my car is up to this stage in the race over everyone else. Although keep in mind, of course, I am pushing hard to see if I can best my PB, and that's exactly what I have done by half a second. Precisely. And I would imagine it is only going to be a matter of time before I start overlapping the rest of the field. So the black 1.8 is still leading the rest of the pack, simply because of his overall race pace, regardless of knowing that by the time we get up to the end of lap 12, he will have made literally 4 pit stops. But again, that car must be quick, which often begs to question how exactly he is able to keep himself up to speed with the rest of the pack. And he's pretty much separated himself from the rest of the field up to this point. I'm actually surprised on how, up to this point in the race, I have not spun once. Up to this point in the race. Because I did not think of myself to officially be dominating a race this much. Pit stops are starting to happen, as of which both of the MX-5s are now in the pits. And I think it's pretty clear to say that it's only a matter of time before I overlap the rest of the field. Although, I suppose, since the leading 1.8 pretty much has probably the quickest car in terms of overall race pace, I'm willing to assume that is precisely why exactly he is decimating the opposition, even though he has made 3 pit stops. I guess that must be how much quicker his car is over everyone else, because, well, that black 1.8 has really been showing some reasonable pace, and even though he is able to close up on me, the truth is, it's only for the short runs that he is able to close up on me. Meanwhile, for the long runs, I'm basically just able to stay well out in front of everyone else, which is basically where I have been pretty much since lap 4. Probably didn't need to shift down to second there, but whatever. guess it must be the race pace he has that's essentially keeping him separated from the rest of the pack, and I would assume that is the main reason why he is able to separate himself by that much. Now, I don't know for sure, but I think that is what has been managing to keep him up front for most of this race in terms of longevity. And I am over a minute clear of the rest of the field. And I think it's pretty much synonymous to say at the least that no one is going to officially make an attempt at catching me. Because, as I correctly predicted, tyres would be the order of the day by the time I started this race, and it will also pretty much be the order of the day by the time I've ended this race also, in correspondence to how exactly I've predicted this so perfectly. Officially, I am now closing up on the back of the pack. So, I think it's clear to say the leader of the Gen 2 Miatas is definitely proving, of course, that his car must be a lot faster than the rest of the pack if he keeps managing to take second place, regardless of knowing how many fucking pit stops he's already made up to this point. And even though he keeps stopping in for fresh rubber, at the same time so far in this race, he's actually managed to set a similar pace to what I'm setting in the short runs. Although, because of how grippy and lifeless those tyres really are, that is the main reason why he has not been able to keep up with me. And already I am now overlapping the first of the Gen 1 MX-5s. And one of the elder MX-5s now comes into the pits. Even though I did choose one of the older models for this event, the truth is, I have to say, I actually made the right port of call to go for this one, in terms of challenging the opposition, because at the moment, I would say I am clearly dominating this race over the rest of the pack. And diving down the inside of another one of my fellow first gen MX-5s, and already I am now pretty much way the fuck ahead of everyone else, because I'm leading this by 72 seconds. I guess that must be because of knowing how much more quicker his car is compared to the rest of the field. and that's probably the main reason on why he's been able to keep taking back second for so long. Yeah, the 1.8 high. Well, don't know which model is which to be precise, but I'm pretty sure that 2 of them are Gen 2 models and the rest of the field are basically Gen 1 models. So heading down the front stretch once again, continuing to extend my lead. As I am now almost a lap ahead of half of the field. It looks as though in terms of my tyre mileage, I will only really need to make one stop in this race, because I'm already 17 laps into this stint and my tyres are still looking good at the moment. Even though my front tyres are showing signs of potential wear, I am pretty sure that it will not be too long before I have overlapped the rest of the field. Then, by the time I have overlapped the rest of the field, I would say I would probably win this race by potentially 2 laps, dependent on how many more pit stops are going to happen, and dependent on how long it is that I have to wait for the rest of the field to decipher their positions. I am pretty sure up to this point that whatever happens from here, I am probably going to continue to extend my lead. So I am nearly an entire lap ahead of the rest of the field. Considering I did dominate Super Speedway under similar circumstances to this, but obviously because Super Speedway is just a short track, in other words an X-shaped oval in comparison to Apricot Hill, obviously I don't think my winning margin will be as large as 8 laps, but I do predict it will be as high as at least a lap, because that is how much I am unceremoniously dominating this race at the moment. And any chances of me losing this race have pretty much been rescinded. In other words, cancelled, because I know for sure that by the time I've overlapped the rest of the field, that's this race said and done for, basically. I'm predicting I will win by at least an entire lap. A little bit wide there through turn 2, but ultimately as we head through the ass curbs now, I am pretty sure that it will probably be the next lap where I overlap at least one of the Gen 2 models. So there could be still a fight going on for second position potentially. And of course I could have also changed these rims if I really wanted to, but I chose not to because, well, I have to put stock for this race in terms of the choices I make, and already up to this point, all I can really say is that this race will be decided in pure pace. And as a result of both the 1.8 models coming into the pits, I think that has pretty much gifted second place over to the 1.8i over the 1.8 RS. Considering he basically has to pit in every 9 laps, and the 1.8i has to pit in every 3 laps. So I'm now an entire lap ahead of the rest of the field. And I should probably correct my prediction on how long this race is going to be. I'm predicting it will be at least under 70 minutes, maybe. Although I really don't know for sure until the checkered flag has been dropped, because I am already on the halfway lap, and ever since the first pit stop was made in this race, which I inevitably predicted was going to happen, I have just pretty much flown away from the rest of the field, by default of me having the most durable tyres in this game that you can buy. I think I steered a little bit too much through there, but again, it really doesn't matter because I am certain that by the time I have officially come into the pits, this race will officially be said and done for. And even though the 1.8i, which is pretty much closing in on me to get back on the lead lap, I'm sure it will not be too long before I manage to put in a lap down again, so there really is no point in me just handing over the position, because I know he's going to pit in on the next lap for what will officially be the 7th time, since I would anticipate he probably has an overpowered car, but at the same time he is also running on worn tyres, from what I can understand. I really don't know how long this race will take, but I'm pretty sure it will probably take somewhere under the likely prospect of 70 minutes, or just over. We will have to wait and see. And I was on the grass. And it looks as though my right front tyre is starting to delaminate just a little bit. Although it does not matter too much because about as provocatively stealing as this race win is with the domination I've had up to this point, the truth is no one else has officially put on the super slicks to ultimately keep up with my MX-5. And even though my on-track pace is not proving to be as quick as many people would think it is, I'm still proving to have the most superior set of boots, and that is exactly what has been managing to set me apart from the rest of the field. And yep, okay, my right front tyre is definitely showing signs of wear, so I will need to come in before too long, there is no doubt about that. Before my front tyres delaminate completely. Even though my left front tyre is not showing as much in terms of signs of wear, I would say it will probably not be long before that itself starts to delaminate. Just pouring myself some water. And yes, I was not concentrating on the track because I was trying to pour some water in a cup for when I make what will probably be my first and only pit stop in this race. Because I know for sure I'm going to win this race by at least a lap over the rest of the field. Potentially 2 laps if my tyres can go the distance, and I'm pretty sure once I have made the first pit stop they probably will. So I think I'm going to keep going on this set of boots, just so I know that tyre degradation does not become too much of a problem in the closing stages. And continuing to pour my water into the cup, and also that was me almost dropping my bottle back on the desk. And furthermore, yes, I am playing this with the TV on my desk, which is one thing I didn't reveal until now. And it's also in my room, so no one can disturb me. Or at least, I don't think anyone can disturb me. And I think it's pretty clear to say that my right front tyre is close to being shot. And my left side tyre is probably not going to be too long before that too starts slowly fading. Excuse me. Yep, okay. I think it's fair to say my right front tyre is dead. And it really does surprise me on how, up to this point, I have not spun the car. Even though my right front tyre is just literally delaminated up to this point. Well, tyre degradation is, of course, an issue that tends to occur here at Gran Valley. That is one thing here at Apricot Hill. I mean, tyre wear overall is not as bad over here as it is at Gran Valley, but again, this course is still pretty high in terms of tyre deg, so I would imagine I will need to pit in very soon, because it does not look like this tyre is going to take any more of the punishment, from what I can understand. Although it's definitely not going to be an irrational decision, because I know for sure that I have overlapped the entire field up to this point, so I am pretty sure that up to this point in the race I have evidently pulled away from the rest of the field. And I'm willing to suspect the 1.8 high in this race is potentially overpowered. I'm not saying he is overpowered, but I think he's potentially overpowered, which is the main reason why he's been able to pull himself away from the field by as much as he has. And up to this point in the race, I would think it's almost unfathomable to see him lose second place if his car is literally that much quicker than the rest of the field. And this race pretty much proves, of course, that if I can win using the first gen MX-5, then I can basically win using any of the MX-5 models in this race. I can basically win using any of them, if it proves I can win with the first gen model, which is exactly what I am proving at the moment. And I'm thinking I can probably go up to potentially 30 laps on this set of tyres, dependent on how long my left front tyre holds out. My rear tyres are fine up to this point, but the fronts, they are definitely deflating. Even though my right front tyre has already entered the deflation zone, because that one has completely deflated. So even though my front tyres are not proving to have the stagger they need to get through the corners, ultimately the rear tyres are precisely what are telling me to stay out for a couple more laps. And as a result, I can certainly say for sure that this is unquestionably going to be a race decided under similar circumstances to how Super Speedway was decided, and as of which, up to this point in the event, I would say it is pretty much unquestionable to say how much of a dominant performance I have had up to this point. Because up to this point in the race, even though my lap times have dropped off quite largely, I'm still continuing to lead this race by a long shot over the rest of the field. think it's fair to say my right front tyre has literally delaminated up to this point. As I'm just scratching my forehead. But anyways. My left front tyre is still willing to go another 2 laps, and then once that has been the case, that will officially be where I have made my first pit stop, and then I can basically go on that set of boots up to the end of the race. Considering I am trying to see if I can go as long as 30 laps on this set of tyres, which is basically what my plan is. And if I can go as many as 30 laps on these tyres, then I would say my second set of boots will still be in good condition because of how well managed my first set of tyres were, even though my right front tyre was pretty much shot dead after this first run. Surprisingly, up to this point in the race, I still have not spun. Even though it probably will happen eventually, surprisingly it has not happened to me yet. Literally, against all the odds, I've managed to take these tyres as far as nearly 30 laps for the entirety, and I have got to admit, the 1.8i I think is probably overpowered, and that, like I said before, is probably the reason why he's managed to keep himself up in second for so long in this race, even though he has already made as many as precisely 9 pit stops in this race. That's probably the only instinctual and mutual feeling I can think of as to why exactly he's been staying in second for so long. And even though my right front tyre is red, my left front tyre is still orange at the moment, so that pretty much tells me that I am going to head a little further into this run, and it will probably be this lap where I officially come into the pits finally. Even though I could go further, the truth is I'm not wanting to take this one set of boots any further, or at least on the front tyres I'm not willing to take them any further. I think now is probably the lap where I will have to pit. Although, surprisingly, up to this point in the race, I've not spun once. And if I can make it back to the pits where I don't spin the car, that will probably be even more of a confidence booster. Because I knew a race such as this one was going to be decided on tyres, but it was just dependent on knowing how long it would be before the tyre delamination had officially begun. Oh, okay, I'm going for an extra lap. I forgot where the pits were. I mean, I could take these tyres up to the end of the race if I really wanted to, but the truth is, I'm not prepared to risk that, so simply overall, I'm not going to. even though this realistically was not the sort of plan I had in mind. I originally planned to pit at the end of the previous lap, but ultimately I'm now going an extra lap because, oddly enough, something in my brain cells told me no, go one more lap, for some reason. But don't ask why, because I literally have no fucking idea what goes on in my brain. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go one more lap, and then I will finally come into the pits. Because I have a feeling that tells me that left front tyre can go just a wee bit further in terms of distance, and then by the time I've done that, I am basically just going to go onwards with the rest of this race and pretty much go in the 8 laps on my second set of boots, regardless of how extremely worn up to this point my front tyres probably are by now. And all I've got to hope for is that this car's promising steering, as of which this car does actually handle quite beautifully for being a rear-wheel drive car, but ultimately I am hopeful in saying that this will officially be the lap where my brain tells me that the first stint has officially ended. Because I'm pretty sure both of my front tyres by now are looking pretty much worn up to this point in the event, so I think now is probably the right time for me to pit in, and if I don't, then well, I'll basically have to go to the end of this race on this one set of boots. And, oh shit, yep, okay, don't spin, don't spin, don't spin, don't spin, okay. Had a little bit of a kerfuffle there with the gravel there, but fortunately I did not spin the car. I went offline, but fortunately I did not spin the car. And even though I have been driving right on pretty much the ragged edge for probably the last 10 laps now, I can say this will officially be the lap where I finally come in to make my first and only stop in this race. After 32 laps of driving, I finally come in to make my first pit stop. My first and only pit stop, I might add. Okay, let's continue, now that I've refreshed myself with some water. But yeah, I think it's pretty clear to see that my lap times were dropping well off as a result. But again, I'm pretty sure that whilst this race so far has taken me less than an hour to officially get this far in the packing order, I'm pretty sure this is the perfect strategy that will officially give me unquestionable race victory over the rest of the field. And we're ultimately overall over a 32 lap sentence. Don't know why I just let go of the throttle there, but anyways. I guess my thumb just slipped or something. Anyways, getting back towards the subject how unsurprisingly dominant this race has been since the first pit stop in this race was made. Ultimately, I can pretty much say the rest of this race will unquestionably be an easy ride, because we now only have 7 laps left. I've been able to go about as long as precisely 33 laps on the first stint in this race, and I am certain this will officially be where I can go onwards to the rest of the race and to undoubtedly pull myself away from the rest of the field. Got a little snap of oversteer as I went through the chicane. Unfortunately, it was nothing serious, and this is officially going to be the lap where I surpass the 1 hour mark. So there we are. I am now 60 minutes into this race, and 34 laps are now complete in this race overall. I can now say this is the time for me to start pushing again, just to get some warmth into these tyres. Even though my right front tyre has already officially warmed up, it's time for me to warm up the remaining set of these boots. Excuse me. Just so I can officially prove, of course, that I still have the pace to set reasonably and consistently quick lap times. This is probably where I now start to overlap my fellow first gen MX-5s by potentially 2 laps, as they have now both made their pit stops. I have overlapped both of them twice, and I got a little high there. And I think I got a little loose there on the corner exit, but fortunately I've just pretty much dominated this shit from more or less the get-go once pit stops started occurring, and then once the pit stops did occur, I just basically went on to dominate the rest of this race, pretty much. So for me overall, this race has basically just been a domination run. Basically. And unceremoniously. because I have the default strategy of using tyre longevity. And where ultimately overall I have torn myself away from the rest of the field and I am pretty much streaking my lead to pretty much tenfold. Alright. 4 laps to go in this race. 4 laps remain in the Roadster Endurance, where I have officially blown away the rest of the competition. So I have unquestionably dominated this race, more or less from the get-go, like I said before. I've gone as long as 32 laps on one set of tyres, and I am pretty sure that this is where the rest of this race will pretty much have its deciding points. So, I think it's fair to say the rest of the field now has pretty much been separated by enough of a distance to say that overall this is right where the race itself comes to its pretty much undramatic conclusion. Because even if I do have a tyre go down now, I am pretty certain that I can go as long as 32 laps in this race and still have reasonable enough tyres to make the remaining miles up. And officially, there are now just 2 laps left in this race. I have already separated myself from the rest of the field to prove how unquestionably dominant I have been throughout this race, and I am pretty sure this is where the laps are winding down. pretty sure this is where I will win this race by an entire lap over the rest of the field by default of tyre longevity. Even though I was off the pace to start with, compared to the leading Gen 2 MX-5, the truth is, I stood my ground, I stayed out for as long as I could on my first set of boots, I persevered, I took the lead, and ultimately, as a result, I'm now officially out there, continuing my unquestionable domination for the rest of this race. So, final lap of the Roadster Endurance here at Apricot Hill. I think is basically meant to be a shortened version of the Apricot Hill Endurance from GT2 from what I can make out, except for saying it's basically this race taken with Mazda MX-5s, a race that is exclusive to the Mazda MX-5 I might add. Considering this very car itself, since when it was first launched in 1989, this car itself basically went onwards to be probably one of the world's best-selling cars in the world, as well as also being probably one of the best-selling cars ever made, ironically. Considering it was notably the MX-5 that officially revived the convertible more than 30 years ago. And also furthermore, in America this has regardably been probably the best-selling convertible ever made. I mean, I know there were popular muscle car convertibles in the 60s, but this one, pretty much coming from the early 90s onwards, this car really did have quite a threshold over the rest of the competition. And that's exactly what this race has come down to, as I emerge victorious by a whole lap over the rest of the field. And let's now wait for everyone else to finish, as pretty much most of the field were driving first-gen MX-5s. But yes, we shall now wait for everyone else to cross the finish line. Anyways, there we go. I win! And ultimately, I won that event by an entire lap over the rest of the field. So the Gen 2 MX-5s were second and third, and then the rest of the field, it was basically first-gen MX-5s. And we get 100,000 credits from winning this race. Pretty amazing in my honest opinion. But there we go. 2 endurance events are down, and we still have 8 endurance events remaining. And also furthermore, this is the largest replay I've had to save so far. Because it is 117 kilobytes, but officially, there we are. And yeah, I did just save the replay, okay. Let's now move onwards to our prize car. And what are we going to get today? We get... what do you know? We get another Gen 2 MX-5. Even though we narrowly missed out on getting our first Formula GT car, but whatever. As long as I can eventually win a Formula GT car, that's all that really matters. Anyways, there we go. That was the Roadster Endurance, and I did also have to check and see if my mic was on. But anyways, 2 endurance events are down, and still 8 endurance events remain. As next time we will be doing the Seattle 100 miles. And we are now dead on 86% complete with this game. and I now have a total of 286 race wins. And this is the car we get. Another Mazda MX-5 1.8 RS. And well, because this thing is in green, I think I'm going to keep a hold of this thing, because even though I already have one of these things, if I check further down in my garage somewhere... Oh, okay, I don't. Well, doesn't matter. I didn't have one of the RS models. Okay, ignore me. That was my mistake, but anyways. That was the Roadster Endurance, and next time we shall be doing the Seattle 100 miles. Stay tuned.